Hey, it's Ryan here, and we're closing the doors tonight on the class of 2020 for the ASK Method Masterclass. But listen, this video is actually not about that at all, because you've already heard me talk a lot about this week about the masterclass. And so what I'd like to do is just take a deep breath, and whether you decide to move forward with me or not, I want to share with you 5 key lessons that I've learned in the last 10 years in business. These are lessons that I've learned going from literally nothing to over $10 million a year. And I want to share these right now because I want you to know that we kind of all struggle with these same things to some extent or another. And I'm hoping that you'll get some perspective and clarity about your path forward, which whether it's the ASK Method Masterclass with me or it's some other path. And so I'd like to share these lessons with you now, beginning with lesson number 1. See, lesson number 1 is something that you hear me, my course advisors, and my Ask Method coaches say all the time, and it's this: emulate before you innovate. Now, this is something that's had a huge effect on my success. It's a mistake that I see others make all the time. You set out to learn a new methodology or a framework, and instead of following that framework to the letter, you try to create some like Frankenstein version of it, whether it's a marketing funnel or a course or webinar. If you're taking bits and pieces of one thing over here and mixing it with this other thing over here, and you're just changing one little thing, well, guess what? You're not going to get the results that you want. I learned early in my career that whatever you decide to do, you want to emulate first. Commit to following all the steps in one process. What does help speed up the process, though, is having the right mentor and the right support to make that happen. Now, lesson number 2 actually builds directly on that last lesson, and it's this: sometimes you have to break what you've built in order to build something better. You see, we tend to get really attached to what we've built and what we're doing right now, and it might be working fine or not, but fine isn't good enough for you. Listen, sometimes you have to take that thing that you've built apart and you've got to start over, and you're going to be able to build something on a more solid foundation. One of my students, Dana, she came into the Ask Method Masterclass with a business that was already working to bring in new students and new clients, but it wasn't converting as well as she would have liked. And it took a lot of effort on her part, which was putting a strain on her and her team and her family. So we decided to take it all apart and rebuild from the ground up. Well, fast forward to today, and she just hit a huge milestone in her business, like a massive milestone. And in her own words, this is what she said. She said it took 5 years to our first million as a company and 1 year to our second million, all thanks to the Ask Method. Going from making $1 million over 5 years to doing it in a single year is huge. You see, sometimes you do have to slow down in order to speed up. Sometimes you have to break what you've built in order to build something better. And that takes us to lesson number 3, which is this: if you're struggling to move forward, take smaller steps. When we're faced with something new, our brains activate the fight or flight response, and you end up getting paralyzed. So the way to hack this response is simply to use something called micro commitments. You ask yourself, what is one step you can take that's so small, it's literally impossible for you to fail? And then you take that step. If you're still struggling, you take a smaller step. And I can almost guarantee that once you take that first step, you're going to want to take the second step, and then the next step after that. And pretty soon, when you start this process and you've built momentum, you've made progress. And that takes us to lesson number 4, which is this: motion breeds clarity. Listen, you're not going to know until you try. Getting something going, even if it's not perfect, means that at every step along the way, you get clearer. You learn something new about your market, your product, what works and what doesn't work. But you won't learn any of it unless you put something out there. And lesson number 5 is this: screw it, just do it. See, the first time I ever bought a program online was a 25-page PDF that cost $17 from the person who would go on to become my single most important mentor, Dr. Glenn Livingston. I remember thinking, $17, screw it, just do it. And I did. And then I invested in his $2,000 training program. And once again, I said, screw it, just do it. And that was the domino that set everything else off. Now, maybe you've heard me say those words because, yes, I tend to say them a lot, But the reason why I call these words the 5 most profitable words of my career is because they've helped me get out of my own way time and time and time again. And now I regularly invest tens of thousands of dollars every single year in training and mentorship, both for myself and my team, because I know the return on that investment is huge. But it all started with that first investment. And that's true for so many of our students who overcame that fear and that doubt and that hesitation to make that decision to move forward. And listen, if you're sensing a theme in each of these lessons, it's this: take action. Move forward, even if it's not perfect, even if you're not sure you'll succeed. Get out of your own way. Why? Because listen to this. The name of the game is to stay in the game until you win the game. Again, whether you end up joining me in the ASK Method Masterclass or not, I want you to do something today to take action toward your goals. And those are my top 5 lessons learned over the last 10 years that have taken me from literally nothing, just getting started, to making over $10 million a year working right here from home.